Hi everyone, my name is Bo Sanders. I want to talk to you about the connection between deconstruction and the dark night of the soul. So last week I put up two posts. One was on the danger of deconstruction, which is that you never get back what you gave up. And the other was with the difficulty of deconstruction, which is that you're never done. And I understand why some people object to or take offense at deconstruction and prefer other things. And you can watch those two videos from last week if you want more on that. But a question that came out of it was, is there a connection between deconstruction and the dark night? And I want to say that while they may have some similarities, they are not interchangeable. One of the things that I think it's good to address is that when you go through a deconstructive process, especially when it is in matters of faith, it can really be disorienting. In fact, when you start looking at those who taught you these things, when you start questioning the institutions that house the things that you previously believed and are now deconstructing, it can lead to a cycle of critique or a loop that is really disorienting. And I just want to acknowledge that. In fact, it can incrementally go through despair from doubting everything, and even lead to discouragement and ultimately even depression. And so that can feel very much like a dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul is specifically a term that comes out of the 1600s. It's a Catholic concept, but it leads to connection with God. And so deconstruction isn't necessarily on that same path. So they may overlap. There may be an intersection, or if you do Venn diagrams, an overlap. But they are certainly not interchangeable terms. Here's some things that have helped me navigate this. So I like the work of Peter Rollins, and he says things like, I'm not trying to depress you, I'm trying to help you see that you're already depressed, stuff like that. Well, he introduced me to a concept through a thinker named Lacan, Jacques Lacan, called the experience of absence and the absence of experience. And I just love this idea. So like if two people are sitting at a coffee shop and they're in the same place doing the same thing at the exact same time, the difference is one of them is expecting a friend who hasn't shown up and isn't answering their phone. The other doesn't know that that person is expecting a friend, and so they are having an absence of their experience. They're not experiencing their friend's absence. But it is the person who is having the experience of absence that I have really learned to listen to and embrace, to sit with. Because it's once you're aware of something that you are missing, that's where things become profound. This ties in for me with the work of Paul Ricoeur, who talks about the second naivete. Now, the person who's sitting at the coffee shop and doesn't know that the friend is expected but not showing up, that person is in first naivete. They just don't know. They have the absence of experience in this scenario. But it's the person who has the awareness that is experiencing the absence. And the experience of absence is that deconstructive moment that looks so similar to what we hear from the Dark Night. Another thing that I love about Ricoeur's thinking is that he talks about how we long to be called from past the desert of criticism. And the desert of criticism is a legit thing. For many people, they never make it through the desert of criticism. Once they enter into things like biblical scholarship or deconstructive understanding of language, whether it's like Wittgenstein or whatever, and they begin to think about larger issues or ask the questions behind their faith, or some the issues historically in church history, it can be deadly to one's faith. And so the desert of criticism is littered with dead bodies and bones of former faith. But for some of us who have somehow survived passing through, we sense a call from beyond. But we enter not into that naivete again. We never get back what we gave up. But we come into a second naivete, which is giving faith Another try, this time with our eyes open. And we enter in to this process, and for many of us, it is such a fruitful and satisfying encounter. We never get back what we gave up, and our work is never done. But there are some similarities to the dark night of the soul, and so I think that that is a great conversation partner. But I just wanted to say that deconstruction is not a path to enlightenment or an encounter with the divine. It is not a transcendent necessarily path forward of faith, and that is why I think it's worth keeping the two separate, even if at points they have some overlap. They are certainly not interchangeable. Hope that is helpful. I would love any other questions or reflections that you have. If you have found something nurturing or fruitful in this, either the dark night concept or the deconstructive process, it would be great if you could point us to that as we continue this conversation. Thank you so much for watching.